Welcome to the Full Nilsson. Today I'm going to be doing a review on the Glock 43, which is Glock's new single stack 9mm. There are a few things that I feel like make for a really good concealed carry handgun. And those things are sights, trigger, aesthetics, the feel in hand, the capacity, the shootability, and the reliability. So, we're going to start out today with reliability. To me, as I've mentioned in a previous video, the most important factor when it comes to a concealed carry firearm or a firearm that you are going to be using to defend your life is whether or not the firearm is reliable. Nothing else matters. It doesn't matter how good the sights are, how good the trigger is, how good it feels in hand, how nice it looks aesthetically. None of those things matter if the gun doesn't work when you need it to work. So reliability for me is paramount in a concealed carry handgun. The Glock 43 in my experience has been 100% reliable. I have shot reloaded ammunition through it, factory ammunition, and I haven't had a single bobble. Doesn't matter if I've shot hollow points, full metal jacket, doesn't matter. It has been 100% reliable. So as far as the reliability is concerned, I think this firearm is exceptional, and I wouldn't hesitate to recommend it to any friends, family member, or carry it myself because I know this gun's going to work when I need it to work. The second category that I have listed here is sights. Sights are pretty important on a concealed carry handgun. Some people don't think they're that important because they say, well, you're going to be really close range. Well, that's true, but what if you're close range and the person is hiding behind an object or another person and the only thing that is exposed is, the person's head or something of that nature? Having lousy sights may cause you a problem in that situation. Now, hopefully we'll never be in that type of situation, but if you're ever in a situation where you need your shot to go in exactly where you want it to go, you need decent sights to be able to accomplish that task. And the Glock has high visibility sights. I feel like they're decent sights. The one thing I don't like about them is the material. I don't like the polymer material. I wish they put metal sights on these guns. Because then they can't get scuffed up or anything like that. That's not the biggest deal, but that's the one hit I would give the sights is that I don't really like the material. The other thing is the sight picture. Some people may not like this particular sight picture. I prefer a 3-dot sight picture on my guns, but I found that I can shoot this just fine as well. So to me, that's not really a big hang up. The biggest thing is I just wish the sights were metal. So that's my feeling or my impression as far as the sights are concerned. Now the next area is the trigger. And the trigger on a firearm, especially on a handgun, to me is extremely important because I would say for me it's probably one of the #1 things that contributes to the shootability of the firearm. And what I mean by that is if you have a trigger that has a really long take up or is really heavy or it's really gritty or things of that nature, it makes it very difficult to shoot the firearm accurately and keep it on target. It also makes it very difficult to shoot the firearm rapidly and keep it on target. So having a decent trigger is one of the #1 things that I look for in a concealed carry firearm. So how does this trigger stack up? Well, this has basically a standard Glock striker fired trigger. This firearm has been safety checked before I shot the video, so you don't need to worry about that. This has a standard striker fired trigger that you see on like an XDS, that you would see on an M&P Shield, or that you would see on a Glock. Any of those competitors that make polymer type handguns all have pretty similar striker fired triggers, and most of them react the same way the Glock does, which is you pull the trigger and it hits a stopping point, and then if you pull it any further, the trigger is going to break. Now the factory Glock 43 trigger is very crisp and it's a decent trigger, but I prefer a little bit lighter trigger. Now when you compare it to the other concealed carry handguns that are out there, there's only one trigger that from the factory that I know of that I like better than the Glock 43, and that's the M&P Shield. I have put a trigger connector in this gun to lighten up the trigger a little bit, and now in my opinion it is the best trigger of any concealed carry single stack 9mm handgun I've ever handled or shot. I love the trigger in this gun now. I think it has the best trigger available. So from the factory, second best trigger after the Shield. If you're willing to do any modifications, I think you can make this firearm have the best trigger of any trigger on the market. So the next area is aesthetics. The aesthetics of this firearm are quite simple. It looks quite plain, and I really like that. I prefer the aesthetics of this firearm over the M&P Shield, the XDS, the LC9, of any of the other competitors out there. That's my personal opinion. I like the way Glocks look. Some people don't. They think they're ugly, but I really like the aesthetics of this firearm. The feel in hand. This firearm, in my opinion, has the best feel in hand of any other single stack concealed carry 9mm handgun that I have held. I love the feel in hand of this firearm. How could it be improved? Well, the only area that I think it could really be improved is you can see that they put some stippling on here. And it would kind of fool you just from looking at the video into thinking, oh, that looks like the stippling on any 4th generation Glock, and that gives you quite a bit of traction. Well, this stippling is not nearly as pronounced as the full-size 4th generation Glocks. And I don't particularly like that. I like that really aggressive stippling. I liked it so much that I sold all of my 3rd generation Glocks to buy 4th generation Glocks because I liked the extra traction that the 4th generation Glocks provided so much. So the only area where I think this could be improved, the feel in hand or the grip, is if they simply put a little bit more aggressive stippling like they have on their other 4th generation Glocks. Is it adequate? Yeah, probably so. It provides a decent amount of traction. But as far as the curvature of the grip and the way the overall grip feels in hand, I really like it. I think it's as good as it gets. And I've had the opportunity to handle most of the small single stack concealed carry firearms that are available, and I prefer the feel in hand of this Glock 43. Now, capacity. This is one area where the Glock 43 kind of makes a mistake, and I have mixed feelings about it. So most of the single stack 9mm that are available today are 7+1, so 7 rounds in the magazine and 1 in the chamber. The M&P Shield, with the extended magazine that it comes with one that holds 7 and one that holds 8. So you can have 7+1 or 8+1. Now, I have no problem with them trying to shorten this gun, and they sacrifice a round as far as the grip's concerned by making the distance here a little bit shorter. So that to me isn't a big deal. Concealed carry firearms are a major compromise. You're sacrificing firepower or capacity for size and something that's more comfortable to carry. So if you really think you're going to need it, or you're going to an area that you would consider a dangerous area or anything like that, carry a bigger gun or a gun that holds more bullets in the first place. That's kind of my take. So I don't really have a problem with this being shorter, which this dimension from the bottom of the grip to the top of the slide is quite a bit shorter or smaller, more compact than the M&P Shield. So sacrificing that one round to decrease that dimension, that's not a big deal to me. Where I think that Glock gets it wrong is with this magazine. So you look at this magazine, and if you've looked at other Glocks like their 33 round magazines, you would think that this base plate may offer an additional round. So you would have 6+1 with the flush magazine if you want it as small as possible, maybe 7+1 with this one. That's not the case. This is a completely hollow piece of plastic. And the only reason they put it on there was so that when you're holding the firearm, you can get your pinky on the gun, if that's something that bothers you, is not being able to have your pinky on the grip. To me, that's a huge mistake. Why couldn't you add a round in here? Instead of making the bottom of the plate here, make it out to here, and you would have a 7+1 magazine and a 6+1 magazine. And you would also make it to where somebody can have their pinky on the grip as well if they would like to have that. So why they did that, I don't know. That just doesn't make any sense to me, and I think that's a mistake on their part. Fortunately, there are lots of companies that either are making or will be making extended base plates for the Glock 43. So if you want additional capacity, you can get it. You'll have to buy a little base plate that will snap onto the bottom of your magazine, and you can increase the capacity. I've already seen some that are available that will allow you to hold 7+1 or 8+1. So if you want to do that and sacrifice having, you know, the size here, you want to have are willing to go with a little bit bigger dimension here to increase the capacity, there are offerings available for that, but they're all aftermarket offerings. So I think Glock made a mistake as far as the capacity is concerned, not with this magazine, but with this one. Why would you add increase that dimension, but you wouldn't increase the capacity? I don't get it. So I think the capacity, Glock made a mistake with this magazine. Now, the shootability of the firearm. This is a combination of all the things I've talked about so far. So the trigger, the sights, the fill in hand, all of those things make combined together determine whether or not the firearm is going to be really shootable or not, at least in my experience. So if I have a firearm that has a really crummy trigger, but it has really good sights and it has a decent grip and stuff like that, a lot of the time the shootability is affected because of the trigger. Well, the Glock has an excellent fill of hand, it has an excellent trigger from the factory, it has adequate sights. The only real hang up with the sights is just the material, but the sight picture is perfectly suitable. So in my experience, this firearm is very shootable. In fact, I think it is the most shootable of any other single stack 9mm. There's only one firearm I would put in the same category as this one, and that is the M&P Shield. The M&P Shield, I feel like between the trigger, the sights, everything that firearm offers, it's just as shootable as the Glock 43. In fact, from the factory, it may be more shootable. Now that I've modified the trigger in this gun, I think it's the most shootable of any single stack 9mm that's available today. So that's kind of my rundown on the Glock 43, some of the things I like, some of the things I don't like, and overall the shootability of the firearm is excellent. I think this is one of the best concealed carry firearms you could buy buy today. Now, the value of the firearm, and this is one other strike I would give against, or one other strike against the Glock 43 in my opinion, is the price. At the time I purchased mine, it was $450. And at the time I purchased mine, you could buy a Smith & Wesson M&P Shield for around $350. $330 to $350, somewhere in that range. So the question is this gun really worth $100 more than the M&P Shield? It depends. If you're a Glock fan like I am, then yes. If you're going to take the gun and you're willing to do a few modifications such as the sights and the trigger, then I would say yes. But if you just want the gun ready to go from the factory and you're never going to do anything to the firearm, I think the M&P Shield is a better value for money from the factory. That's my opinion. The reason why I say if you're willing to make some modifications to the Glock 43, then it's worth the money. I think if you're willing to modify the trigger and the sights, this gun then becomes the best single stack 9mm available, period. I don't think there's a better gun as far as once you do the trigger, the sights, everything else is already set and ready to go. But I think if you're willing to make those two modifications, you end up with a firearm that's the best possible firearm for concealed carry. That's my opinion. That's my take on the Glock 43. I love mine. I'm not disappointed in it at all. I don't plan on getting rid of it anytime soon. If you already own a bunch of Glocks, then I would highly recommend getting a Glock 43 simply because it's the same battery of arms, the takedown's the same, the trigger, everything is going to feel the same as your full-size Glocks. And if you already own a full-size Smith & Wessons and all Smith & Wessons, I would recommend you stick with an M&P Shield or something that has same battery of arms, same type of feel, stuff like that. That's just my particular take. That's my recommendation to almost anybody who's in the market for a concealed carry firearm. I usually recommend you stick with the same family. So that's what I think of the Glock 43. If you guys have any questions, you can leave those in the comment section and I will get back to you guys as soon as possible. Thanks for watching. See you later.